I know one thing that my ears perked up on, I'm sure a lot of listeners will as well, is you said it diminished the cravings.
Usually by the end of the appointment, people are like, I didn't know that I could feel this calm. I didn't know that my brain could feel this clear. People tell me, like there's a ray of sunshine coming into my brain right now.
Welcome to the Recovery Roundtable podcast, where the journey to sobriety opens up through powerful discussions and shared experiences. Join your host, Mark, who will bring you stories of triumph and resilience from the heart of Pacific Shores recovery. Every episode offers insights and support, guiding you through the challenges of addiction recovery. Thank you for joining our community. If you're ready to start or continue your recovery journey, we're here to inspire and support you. Let's explore recovery together.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and doing some education for us about your unique style of what you do for this world and how you offer value. Laurie, thank you so much. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. I really appreciate it. Your mission is amazing and I admire what you do. So your audience is very blessed to have you. I'm a nutritional therapist and I work mainly with women, who have anxiety, depression, some addiction issues. I do work with people who have addiction, but I use amino acid therapy to balance the brain. So we balance those neurotransmitters in the brain, kind of boost them. Because when you have anxiety, depression, addiction, there's always a depletion in those neurotransmitters. And so I use the amino acids to rebuild them so that the cravings go away, the anxiety, the depression just lifts, and then you can deal with what's left over. And so I've been doing that since about 2011, and amino acid therapy saved my life like 30 years ago from a really bad eating disorder, anxiety, depression, and kind of on that path to addiction as well. So I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm just happy to be here.
Well, thank you. Do you mind sharing of kind of your own journey 30 years ago and how what you got into kind of changed your entire life of not just personally, but also what you do professionally?
Oh, I would love to because I shouldn't be here. So I was on the path of self-destruction. I was binging and purging every single day in my late teens, early 20s, and tried therapy, tried to get into eating disorder clinics, tried a lot of different things. But honestly, I didn't qualify for the clinics because I was bulimic, so I really wasn't underweight and I wasn't suicidal enough, so I didn't meet their parameters. But I was passing out, I was having seizures, ending up in the ER, all those kind of things. So it was really not a good path to be on. And a friend of mine, I was in nursing school at the time, she was actually my professor, was trying to help me to get into these programs, and she wasn't even able to help me. So I thought, well, if I just move away, that'll fix everything, Mark. And so I moved away, and yeah, things just got worse. So this same nursing professor, she sent me an article, and it was by a clinic out in Mill Valley, California. And their mantra was that, speaking of food cravings, that you're addicted to what you're allergic to or sensitive to. And so I called out there, and because it made sense to me, like it just triggers the endorphins, the dopamines when you're binging and purging all the time. And they're like, yeah, we can help you. So I went out to this eating disorder clinic. Well, it wasn't just eating disorder, but this outpatient addiction clinic, and found out that I indeed was very sensitive to everything that I was binging and purging on. So I had celiac disease, I had a sensitivity to dairy, yeast overgrowth, adrenal issues, but most importantly, I found out that my brain was just super, super depleted. And so they started using targeted amino acids to support my neurotransmitters. And all of a sudden, that depression starts to lift, that anxiety starts to lift. It cut that craving cycle so that I could not eat those foods that were triggers for me. And then I was able to change my diet, able to change my lifestyle so that I could overcome that eating disorder and the depression and the anxiety. And then I kind of never looked back from there. It just set me on this whole health paradigm. This was when nutritional therapy wasn't popular or a thing. Functional medicine wasn't a thing. But boy, that sure changed my life. And it really just saved my life. I don't think I would be here, to be honest.
So your body was breaking down, but the places you're
Mhm.
going to for help are saying, sorry, you're not sick enough, which
Correct.
is crazy in and of itself. But it sounded like your body was just in this constant state of fighting for survival.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely was. Yeah.
And and so you found a place and you use the word brain balance, which I love because we're a mental health and addiction treatment center. And so many people that when they hear the term mental health, I mean, there's all these different stories that are
Such a
told.
stigma there. Yeah.
There is, but when you break it down, really, it's brain balance. Is the brain healthy? Is
Hmm.
it receiving and giving the healthy impulses and different aspects of communication to the body? And so, from you, what you were sharing, the brain was imbalanced. So, what were some of the things? And can we get into the amino acids
Yeah.
of what exactly that looks like and what it does? Because I know one thing that my ears perked up on, I'm sure a lot of listeners will as well, is you said it diminished the cravings. This episode is brought to you by Pacific Shores. We have been an industry leader for over 25 years in the mental health and addiction space. We have helped thousands and thousands of individuals and families reclaim their lives. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please reach out so we can do this together. Our number is 949-749-7317. And that's
Yeah.
that's a huge part. So let's dive into
Yeah,
to that
let's
part of the
dive in.
brain.
So, when I'm focusing on, doing the brain balance to rebuilding that brain where it should be, I focus on 5 areas. So, we have serotonin, which is like your inner sunshine. So, when you don't have enough serotonin, that's when the anxiety, the depression, the OCD, having a hard time sleeping, the afternoon to evening cravings kind of creep in. That's low serotonin. And so, once that is balanced, those things can go away. Right. And then we'll talk about your endorphins. So your endorphin is like that inner joy. You just feel good and yummy. And when I talk about that, sometimes it just kind of makes me cry because you just feel like you inside when your endorphins are good, right? When they're not good, you're craving things for comfort. You're craving things to kind of numb yourself, whether it's, food, marijuana or porn or exercise or hard drugs, whatever it might be, just to kind of numb yourself. And when that's balanced, you feel better. And then there's GABA. GABA is where we get to take a deep breath and let it out. So we're using addiction where the cravings kind of lead us to our stress coping, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
so when that's balanced, you're not overwhelmed. You don't feel like your shoulders are to your ears. You can just go, oh, I can deal with life on life's terms. And you respond appropriately to stress. You're not looking for something to cover it up. And then there's your catecholamines, your dopamine, where you have your ADD, ADHD. You're looking for something to kind of calm that nervous system down, to help you focus, all those kind of things. And so when your catecholamines are balanced, you feel really grounded, you feel really good. And then there's the glucose balancing. And so we use L-glutamine for that. And glutamine helps you to feel really grounded, but it's not only good for your gut, because we usually use it for a gut, but it's good to keep your brain like grounded and just happy and feel like a lot of people just say they just feel kind of like connected to the earth when they have glutamine. They're just like, okay, like I feel rock solid now. So, and we test that and we just determine, which amino acid you need. Most people need more than one, in each of those categories, and we go from there.
So how do you test for something like that to see what's imbalanced?
Yeah, I keep it super simple. So like if you were my client, I would send you a kit of amino acids in the mail, just a sample kit. We would get online. I get a good health history from you. I'd have you fill out some different paperwork. And based on those forms, we determine what categories you're deficient in. And then we take the amino acids in those kits and we try them. So I have you open up the capsule, put it under your tongue. We stare at each other awkwardly for like 2 minutes. And then we're just like, hey, Mark, what are you feeling right now? Do you feel something different cognitively, emotionally, something different physically? And then we determine, if you're feeling that or not. What dose do you need? And then we move on from there.
So it sounds like it's based mainly off of feeling or emotions of when it's introduced to the bloodstream.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to get a reaction within 2 to 5 minutes from that amino acid under your tongue because it works that fast.
So I don't know if you've ever seen this, but what would you do if someone maybe has been numbing their different feelings and emotions and not really in tune with what they feel or how they feel?
I get that a lot. But most of the time, 90% of the time, people can feel something, right? They can identify it. There's always a few people out there who have just been so numb for so long that they really don't recognize it. And that's when, if we have those type of people, if they have somebody with them, somebody else can recognize, maybe they sit back in their chair, maybe they stop shaking their leg, something changes, or their face relax, or they're not up in your screen like this anymore, they're just kind of sitting back. So there are usually lots of different clues. Some people it's just hard to tell. And
Hmm.
then we just have to, based on the health history and, the supplement forms and stuff, we'll just try some and see how it works.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you see with a person who says, I'm open to this, I'm wanting to try this, but they're not really sure, more of like feeling different aspects. They're not sure of how to do it to get the desired outcome.
I say let's just, do that initial appointment and let's just try the amino acids and see what you respond to, and then we can go from there. Because usually by the end of the appointment, people are like, I didn't know that I could feel this calm. I didn't know that my brain could feel this clear. People will tell me, like there's a ray of sunshine coming into my brain right now. I just had a girl tell me that the other day, or this heaviness that was on my chest, it's literally gone. Like I can't believe that this happened, within the first 10 minutes of us using the amino acids. So by the end of the appointment, there's usually a lot of hope there. And that's when people are like, okay, I know I can do this piece of it. So let's do this. And then once you're feeling good enough, then we can make the other changes.
So what's a typical regimen that you see? Is this something that is taking daily? Is it taken every couple hours? Is it weekly? How does it work?
Yeah, so usually we do 2 to 4 times a day of the amino acids because your body uses amino acids so quickly, especially when you're stuck in stress, fight or flight mode. And so it's going to take a while for that to get rebuilt. So anywhere from 60 to 90 days at those higher doses, and then we can always, back off after that. So, but most people take them anywhere from 6 to 12 months, not at the higher doses, but consistently, and then just use them as they need them after that because they're stressful events. We get depleted, so it's good to know how to replenish your brain.
So it sounds like once it's replenished, anywhere between 6 to 12 months, the body knows how to naturally kind of take back over of
It
producing that.
does. It does. Hmm.
That's wild. So what are some of the most common things that you see?
In regards to what, Mark?
Well, in regards to when someone reaches out to you of saying either ADD, ADHD, like when people reach out to you, what are the common things that you're solving? So people watching this can say, that actually resonates with me. I'm experiencing some of the same things.
Yeah, so most of the people I see are women. And so I'll use that as an example. They come to me, they're anxious, they're depressed. Usually they're on one medication, sometimes two for anxiety, usually an SSRI, maybe an ADHD med, depending on the person. So 1 to 2 medications, they're not sleeping well. Usually they have a hard time losing weight and they feel a little off hormonally. So that's kind of the synopsis of most of the people that I see. I have a few people that come, they're on like 4 or 5 different medications, since like age 15. So that takes us a while to unwind all of those things. But man, I have a girl right now. She was an addict and she was on 5 different medications and she had been on those since she was 15. And now, 8 months later, she just ran her first marathon. She's off of all of her meds. She looks fantastic. She loves life and, she's doing really great in her job. So, just a huge win for her within those 8 months.
That is awesome. So it sounds like, because I know that's one thing in the industry. You'll see it's like, okay, here's the SSRI. If you're feeling depressed, by the way, one of the side effects could be additional depression or even suicide ideation.
Right.
And so of looking at how does my body respond, it's like if one of the side effects is this could get worse than gets better, this is where the more holistic approach really resonates with a lot of people. So you're able to see people come in on SSRIs feeling a certain way, even under prescription medication and through immunotherapy, able to begin to feel completely different.
Completely. Yeah. A lot of people say that your brain can't heal once you've been on the medication. I'll get people that have been on these SSRIs and other meds for 30 years, since the beginning. And we can still get them off. And, I work with their doctor or whoever they want me to work with, a psychiatrist to get off those meds. And then we just rebuild the brain and magic kind of happens.
That is awesome. So what has kept you going for all these decades of wanting to continue to just change people's lives?
Well, I never get tired of giving people hope and seeing change. When somebody's life is changed, it not only changes, them, but it changes their family, their friends, and then it's just this ripple effect that goes out to the entire world. So if I can change one life at a time or a group of people at a time, whatever it might be that I'm doing, it's always worth it. I never get tired of doing it.
So are there any books or literature that you'd recommend to someone if they're not familiar with amino acid therapy that they could kind of take as like an intro to it?
Yeah, I would get The Mood Cure by Julia Ross is one of the best books on amino acid therapy out there.
I'm writing that one down. I haven't heard of that. So
She's a
you,
pioneer in amino acid therapy. She was doing it way back in the 80s.
okay.
Yeah.
So some of the things you were talking about is you're talking about serotonin and how that is one of the things that can lead to cravings when it's imbalanced. Can you go a little bit more into, we'll geek out a little bit, keep it surface geeky.
Surface
Um,
geeky. Yes.
yeah, of the serotonin, why it's important to make sure that you have serotonin and some of the things that you see when a person's serotonin is depleted.
Yeah, so serotonin is probably the number one neurotransmitter, and it's the first one to get depleted because so many different things compete for that serotonin receptor site. So it's easy to deplete your serotonin, and if your serotonin isn't balanced or you don't have enough serotonin, it's hard for your body to use the rest of the amino acids. So you really need that serotonin balance in there for balance of all the amino acids going on. It breaks down into 5-HTP and NAD. So you really want that whole cascade of overall health with the serotonin. So it's a big deal. When people don't have enough serotonin, they just don't like life. Life is just really, really hard. And that, like I said before, that glass is half full. You feel like Eeyore all the time, and I think that's where a lot of that guilt and shame comes in. You're like, I know my life can be better. I know I can do better, but I just don't have the capacity for it.
So how do serotonins interact with endorphins? Because that was the part that I wrote down. You said endorphins is what makes you feel like you, and that resonated because a lot of the time we'll hear people say, I don't feel like me."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because that's that inner joy. So I always look at serotonin like your sunshine and endorphins like your inner joy. So when you have the sunshine and the joy together, you just feel really good. When you've got that, you can feel like your life is worth living when you have enough endorphins, right? And then you come in with the serotonin and you just have the happiness on top of that. So that joy and that happiness, I feel like the joy is that inner and the happiness is like you can enjoy everything around you. Those things that make you happy, those people that make you happy, but that endorphin is like that inner uprising of just being joyful about who you are, who you were created to be.
So how much influence does like a morning routine have, or as far as habits and how you take care of yourself each morning to this process?
I think that's really key, Mark. I'm really glad you bring that up because, once your brain starts to get balanced, it's easier to have a routine. So we can start with, okay, let's get up at the same time every day. Let's go to bed at the same time every day, right? Let's get out in the sunshine because that's going to boost your serotonin. It's going to boost your endorphins. And so we can start doing things that will naturally, outside of the supplementation, increase those for us so that we create those good habits, lifestyle habits. And that will allow you to cut down on those supplements earlier if you can bring in those daily habits. So I think morning routine is key for sure. Just getting the exercise, the sunshine, the reading, the mindset habits.
So with you being an expert in this, do you mind sharing what your morning routine looks like at this level for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I usually get up about 6:15, and then I go for at least an hour walk with my dogs. It's the time where I pray and I think and do all those things. And then I come back home and I'll do a little more exercise depending on what day it is. And then I sit down to read. I read 10 to 20 pages a day out of my Bible and another book. And then depending if it's an intermittent fasting day or if it's a non-intermittent fasting day, I might eat breakfast or I get started right to working.
So you mentioned a lot of things. The things that I picked up on is there's a lot of movement involved.
A
So
lot of movement, yes.
how important does exercise for the body play with brain balance?
Oh, I think it's key because, just doing squats activates, your brain chemistry, activates your neurotransmitter production. So just the very act of doing body weights is key. Walking, that calms your whole nervous system. And if you're praying or singing or, doing some breathing techniques while you're walking, that calms everything down as well. So the goal is, to be able to switch in and out of that parasympathetic sympathetic mode appropriately so that we can, be on when we need to be on, but we can relax when we need to be relaxed. And so the amino acids help with that, but also your lifestyle choices, the movement, really plays a key role in all of that.
So we talked about exercise for the body. One of the things I'll say is exercise for your mind. You said you read, you engage in meditation, prayer. How important is that to this brain balance?
It's key as well. Again, you're going to boost your own, neurotransmitters just by doing those acts as well. And you're training your brain. You're training your brain to expect that. And once it expects that, it can kind of fall into that mode a lot easier when stress comes in, that we have to deal with.
So you can condition your brain to basically expand the capacity of what brings on stress, where before maybe it was very small, but now
Mhm.
as you get healthier, your brain expands the capacity. You can take on a lot more. I wouldn't say stress, but maybe you label things different or the
Yeah,
stories
you
kind of
look at
change.
things completely different, don't you? As you grow as a person, as your brain becomes healthier, your body becomes healthier, the stress that would have sent you, over the edge 2 years ago is like, oh, that's not a big deal. I have much bigger fish to fry now.
Wonderful. So what's some of the, or maybe one of your favorite stories or success stories that you like to share?
Oh gosh, there's so many of them. I have a mom who has 5 kids, and she was a past addict. And she was still on 2 different medications, and she was just really, really struggling to be a mom. She was addicted to sugar, so she had given up the really hard addictions, but she was addicted to sugar. She was stuck on caffeine, and she just wasn't showing up the way she wanted to show up. And her little kids were noticing it, so she had I think they were all under the age of 10. So like she was a really, really busy mama. And so we started working with her, and within a whole month, her husband calls me and says, because she said, my husband wants to talk to you. And so it was during her appointment. And he's like, thank you for doing what you're doing because it has literally changed our family. Like, my wife is more present. I'm not frustrated with her, then she's not frustrated with me. The kids are starting to behave better because neither of us are frustrated with each other. So that spills over to the kids, and so, a year later, she doesn't need me anymore, right? Because her family is doing really, really well. So it wasn't just about her. It was about, that spilling over to her kids, to her husband. And now I saw him for a little bit to help him, unwind some of the things that he was dealing with. We helped the kids with a few things. And so it was this whole spillover. And that just brings me so much joy. It's what I see all the time, just that spillover into the family.
Yeah, we tend to only look at one thing at a time, but when we understand that we're all connected, there's different things that one
Yeah.
small change can add that ripple effect. So you brought up one of the dirty words, and that's sugar.
Ooh,
How
yes.
how I'm trying to think of how to phrase this because sugar's everywhere, but how much do you see that actually affect negatively brain balance?
Oh, I see it affect all the time. I mean, so many people are addicted to sugar, and we've decided that it's okay, right? It's a safe addiction in society, kind of like coffee. I know that's the C word, the caffeine, but we've made it acceptable. And so, people are like, oh, I don't eat very much sugar, when in fact, they're having several energy drinks a day, or they're putting sugar in their coffee, and then they have a ton of carbs, like starchy stuff, which just turns right into sugar. So if we look historically, sugar was sold on the streets, kind of like cocaine is sold on the streets today. So it was a drug is really what it was. And then all of a sudden we made it a commodity and we use it in everything. And it's more addictive than cocaine for a lot of people.
So what are some of the negative effects you see of people that have high sugar-based diets?
Well, a lot of just glucose regulation issues. So if your glucose goes up and it crashes and it goes up and crashes, every time that happens, that depletes your brain. And then it sort of numbs your brain. There's some studies out there that says it, helps to kill the neurons in our brain when our glucose levels go up and down. And so, that's why we come in with amino acids to help balance, the glucose levels as well. Glutamine is amazing for that. But yeah, it just really depletes the brain. And then it's really hard on your adrenal glands. It's hard on your thyroid and your pituitary gland. So it really wrecks our whole endocrine system when our glucose levels can't stay stable. And, sugar gives us wrinkles. So, we don't want wrinkles. It just kind of, breaks down our body, breaks down the collagen in our muscles and in our bones and our skin and everything. So it wreaks havoc from head to toe.
Yeah. What advice do you have for someone that might be struggling is maybe maybe tried either a therapist or a psychiatrist, they still feel like, gosh, I'm not myself. I'm not necessarily, going down the addiction route, but I feel like something is off. I want to be me. What kind of advice would you give?
Well, one, what kind of routines do you have? So, going back to that. But two, let's talk about what deficiencies do you still have? Why don't you feel like yourself, right? It could just be as easy as a deficiency, and that's easy to fix. I was just talking with somebody this morning, and they're like, I like kind of like you said, I just don't feel well. I don't have an addiction. I'm not on a medication, but I just feel kind of anxious, a little bit depressed. Could it be a brain imbalance? Yeah, it definitely could be a brain imbalance. So, let's test you and see what, amino acids you need, what changes in your diet do you need. So sometimes it's super easy to fix.
No, that's good. Are there any questions that you wish I would have asked, or what questions would you ask yourself?
That's a great question. I think we forget about our physical bodies. Sometimes we're so caught up in, let's do counseling, there's some wonderful treatment centers out there, but most of them I found don't address the physical aspect of it. We're body, mind, and spirit. So, we really work on our mind, but sometimes we forget the body, and the body has a direct effect on how well the mind reacts to life. So, if your body is depleted, and that's going to affect how well you do in counseling. I know for me personally, once my brain was balanced, I could go through counseling a lot easier, and I didn't have as many things to work on. Life wasn't as challenging as I thought it was when my brain was so depleted, and I see that all the time with my clients. So there's sometimes it's just as easy as fixing the foundations.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I got this visual while you're sharing that of yeah, sometimes it's like we have things packed so tightly and we can
Mhm.
barely get by. And when the brain is balanced, it's like we're in a supercar on a
Oh
highway
my
with
gosh,
nobody else
yeah.
around. And it's like, no, you still got to drive, but it makes the drive so enjoyable and you can actually enjoy what's all around you.
Exactly. I mean, life is good. We're supposed to live it to the fullest, right? God gave us this life to have it abundantly. So that's my goal is to help people have an abundant life.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. If someone wants to learn more about this, how can they find you?
You can follow me on Instagram, the Calm Mom Community, and or you can go to my website, lauriehammer.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mark.